All right, welcome everybody to day 2 of Water Week. So today we're going to be talking about the Unreal Engine's built-in water functionality, which looks really nice. So I've got this giant landscape out here that I've kind of sculpted. It looks okay. It looks not super realistic. It's not something we're going to touch later on as how to make a better landscape material, but it looks okay for now. We've got this water here. It looks okay. But there's a better way of doing water. So let's get into it. Edit, plugins, and you're going to search for water. And you're going to turn on both of these plugins. Water is an experimental version? Yes. Turn on water extras? Yes. And so we're going to turn both these things on, and we are going to hit restart and save if you made any changes. And that's going to enable the water plugin, the experimental water plugin. And to be fair, there are some quite literally rough edges on the plugins. In fact, on the edges is where the new water plugins don't work very well. So the new water system has the ability for you to just drag and drop a lake into the world. You can drag and drop a river into the world. You can drag and drop an ocean that cuts away all of the land away from you. You can drop an island onto the lake or onto the ocean that puts land back in. And it has like a shader for the underwater areas. It's got waves. It's really detailed. It's really intricate. But it's got problems on the edges. Like literally the edge cases are hurt. You'll see what I mean. Like it takes some effort to get it good. Like when you start off, it's like 80% done. And then trying to get like the last 20% done takes like 100 times as long as like just the first 80%. Collision profiles. All right. So now that we've enabled the water plugin, let me come over here. Maybe let's turn up my camera speed a little bit. Maybe I'll come over here and drop a lake right next to this one, and you can kind of like see the difference between them. So first off, let's just sculpt the landscaping down a little bit. There's a really big brush. Let's turn the brush down here, and I'm going to use flatten, and so I'm actually just going to flatten this out so it's kind of like the same elevation as the edge over here. Just going to kind of flatten this out a little bit, make a little area. This area here is going to be another lake, right? And then because these edges look a little weird, I'm just going to smooth them out a little bit here. Okay. And I'm going to go back into selection mode, and I'm going to search for lake. And you can see now, now that you've enabled the plugin, if you don't have the plugin's not enabled, you're not going to see this. So you got to drag this out and let it think. And then it's going to think. And it ended up right on top of my other lake. All right, so just move this over here. There we go. And here is a lake using the new lake engine. So here's my old lake over here, and you can see the edges, like I said, don't look great. And over here, you can see the edges over here. They don't look great. Like the defaults, you see what they did with the land here? Like it just looks like not good. Like, and then you just end up spending a lot of time like trying to get like the edges like working right. It's like a little bit of water sticking out there, so I'm gonna rotate this a little bit. Get it away. This way. Nope, too much. No, see, it's still sticking out. It's far enough away that, yeah, we still got this little ledge here, and it looks kind of terrible. Anyway, so let's come back in here, and we'll pause. Okay, let's come over here to the new lake area. And you see it's got waves on it, right? That are actually, if I tilt the camera down to the side, you can see these waves actually have vertical height to them, right? This is different from the lake that we made over here, which it's perfectly flat. It's literally a plane. Now, unless you get the camera exactly like parallel to it, you're not going to see that. And because we added that little bit of sinusoidal motion up and down, it actually looks like it's actually got a little bit of waves to it. But this is actually perfectly flat, right? If we look at it from the side, there's, despite these simulations of waves with the normal map and stuff like that, it is actually perfectly flat. If we come over here, though, this is not. This is actually got some waves going on. And so I'm also walking in water. So, and if I go underneath the water, you can see it's got a shader for the underwater area that adds that nice blue effect. When you look up through the water, it gives you that nice little underwater distortion kind of looking thing. Whereas on the, is there water here? I thought I saw waters. Maybe not. Okay. Whereas when we come into here, we've got our little post-process volume. It doesn't look as good. Like, you know, whatever it was I did last time in class, it really just doesn't look as good as their work that they did on this. And the waves are a little bit too strong, I would say, for a lake. Like, lakes don't have waves like this. Like, this is very unnatural looking. It's also a little weird that I'm walking on the surface of the lake. That's kind of dumb too. But yeah, if you get the camera underneath it, you can see the distortion and the colors and things like that. So that's how easy it is to make a lake. You just drag it out. You need to make sure that when you first did your landscape that you had something called edit layers turned on. It defaults to on now. If you're using an older version of Unreal Engine, like 4.0 version engines, edit landscape layers were not turned on by default. And so when you dragged out the lake, nothing would happen. So what happens, though, when you drag this out is it actually cuts into the landscape. So like if I were to move this lake down, you'd see it actually cuts the landscape where the lake is. And it looks bad. Like, this does not look natural at all, right? And so, like I said, it gets you to a place that looks really good, but then you've got these like issues where like you've got these like little lips of land and things like that. It just looks super unnatural. Doesn't look, I don't know. We thought that should be the default. Pull it up maybe. And then you got these things over here, right? Drag it up a little bit, and now it's going to pull the land up with it. You see this? See how like the ground is now pulled up, which looks even more unnatural. That's why I was flattening that land first, because if you have any areas that are not flattened, in fact, I'm going to delete this, and I'm actually going to come back into landscape, and I'm going to smooth out. Actually, I'm not going to smooth it. I'm going to flatten. I'm going to make this. A little bit bigger. I'm actually just going to create a much bigger, completely smooth area to put the water in, because any kind of lip whatsoever causes those issues you saw where like water peeks out through it, stuff like that. So I'm actually going to make a huge, just completely flat area here. Yes. Using the flatten tool. And then I'm going to go back into selection mode, drag the lake back out. Drag the lake back out. Come on, you get it, you get it, you get it. Nope, too far. I dragged it onto my face. All right, let's try this again. Drag it to here, and we'll just move it. And even still, like right there where I left that hill, looks stupid. See that? And so you just spend a lot of time like poking at this thing, just trying to get it to look right, so you don't have things like this in it. Okay, so let's go over to the details panel here. Let me minimize my face. So in the details panel, you can adjust things like this, like how does it cut into the landscape. So yeah, if you turn off effects landscape, it won't cut into it. Water, let's see, water body component. Water advanced. missed. Where is the... Okay, right here. So the default waves are called this, and you can switch it to Kirshner water waves, which look a little bit more realistic. And then you can come in here and you can adjust these different settings here. I'm actually going to turn the max wavelength like way down. Oh, sorry, that's wavelength, not amplitude. Sorry, max wavelength of 6,000, just fine. The amplitude I want to turn down. So the max amplitude is 80 centimeters, which is pretty big for a lake. This is a pretty placid lake, so I'm going to turn the amplitude down like a lot. And you can see even now, like it's still way too active. Like this is like way too much. Steepness, small wave steepness, large wave steepness. Like you can just sit there and play with all of these settings like forever. Wavelengths, minimum wavelength would be like 2,000. You just sit there and mess them until you get something that looks pretty good. Number of waves, 4, 1, 0, 1. And it's a lot more chill now. All right. So there's a lot less going on in the lake before, whereas before it looked more like something that was affected by like a lot of tidal effects and wind effects and things like that. You can sit there and play with all these constants and get it looking like the kind of water that you want it to look like. Now, there. So, did you see that lip just change there? So what happens by default is that it cuts away. So it moves 5 meters out and then cuts away the landscape at a 45-degree angle. And I'm not sure why they thought that's like a good default, because it never looks good, like ever. Like it always ends up with these like little artifacts like this, where this doesn't appear in nature. You know what I mean? Like this is just not, and it just leaps out at the human eye as just like an artifact. You pull the lake up, you pull the lake down, and unless everything's perfectly flat, like you always get these like little bits like this where it just leaps out at you as being unnatural. If you change this to width-based mode, then it looks a lot more natural. So if you come around here, you see how like it's all, you know, it blends from the lake elevation to the actual terrain elevation now, but it looks right. You guys see that? Like it looks far, far better. And you can change all these things as well. I'm actually happy with that, like that. Like that's actually pretty good. That looks fine to me. Okay, the water also like looks tropical by default. Like this looks like a tropical ocean, like that kind of greenish blue turquoise kind of thing. Whereas my lake over here is much more of a, I don't know. It's technically the ocean material, but could be like a frigid alpine lake or something like that. So. All right, so the next thing I want to show you guys is a water river. It seems useful for really quick environment making, but not for anything really refined. No, you can make it refined. It just, like I said, you have to come into the settings and you have to like change each one of them up, change it down, mess with it, see what each one of those things does until you get it to a point where it's like, okay, that is about right. Like this still doesn't look right to me exactly. Like the waves are still a little bit too active, but it's better than it was. Does it always default to the guitar pick shape? Oh yeah, that's something I need to talk about. So this is something called a spline. Okay, a spline is a curve, and it's a curve in this case that ends up back where it started. Okay, and so there's a lot of things in Unreal Engine that use splines. if you click on the spline component here, you should be able to go select spline point, select all spline points, select next spline point, and so you see I'm like rotating between these different control points here by going through these. Point 1, point 2, point 3, point 1, point 2, point 3. You can add a new point, add a previous spline point to the current selection, and a new point will appear on there. And you can move it. That's the whole thing. Let's see here. There. Okay, where's the new one? Now if you alt drag, that'll do it too. So if you alt drag, you can add a new spline point. So here we've got 4 spline points now, right? If I want to add a 5th one, I can click on that spline point and hold down alt and drag. And now I've got a 5th one, and I can pull this shape in. It look like a kidney bean or something like that. I can make a little half moon lake kind of thing like this. Move this around. So you can do that, and then also there are these control nodes like this, and by doing that, you can adjust how the curve moves, like between one point and another. So you can create all sorts of like really interesting, like this little teardrop shape here. And so it defaults to like a triangle, which is again not very natural. Like I don't know why triangle lakes are the natural, the default here, but by clicking and dragging on these things, you can move the points. Click on a point, and then you can click on the control points with them, and that adjusts the shape of the curve, like how it bends towards the next person. And you make really interesting looking things as the result of this. And if you want to add a new spline point, alt drag, and you got another one. And so you can have them go in all sorts of different ways. Make as many points as you want. There you go. You got like a cat-shaped lake now, something like that. You can move this back to the ears of the cat. There we go. It's not too bad. Right. Here to base your final project around triangle lakes. You can still use a triangle lake. It's the default. Okay. So, yeah. So basically when you've got the thing selected, you can see the points of the spline on here. You can click on those and then move them and update the shape however you want. Okay, and this is going to apply for the rivers too. So the next thing I wanted to show you was rivers. And rivers also are spline based. So maybe I'll have the river, I don't know, start over here somewhere. And you can see, again, the default is terrible. Look at this. You just have this like jello water just like hanging out in midair. That's, you know, it doesn't even have a underside to it, right? And so I kind of was thinking like we could have like a waterfall or something coming down this. So I'm going to rotate the point so it's pointing this way instead. It's better. More kind of want to like coming around the mountain, you know. And of course this is all terrible. So water body river. Switch this. Yeah. Well, that looks stupid. Nice. It also looks bad. Additive. Depth 0. No, anything. So you mess with how like wide the river is. Off with 0. It's still terrible. See what I mean? Like you just sit there and like just play with these values. You can find out like what each one of the values does. As a result of it, none of this looks like very good by default. Okay. So I'm going to come in here and maybe click on you, pull you up a little bit, help you like this source of the water here. And then see how it's like raising the train here? It looks really bad. Let's see, with angle. Maybe angle looks better in this case somehow. You know, these things are sticking out the sides. Click here, and we can drop that down. Then over here, this guy, can drop it down further. We can alt drag and create a new spline node. And you can see it's like cutting away the landscape as we do this. Curve the river. Make a new spline point. So drag this out to the lake. And let's drop it down to the level. Waterfall. Lake. And these things don't blend together particularly well. And one of the neat things is the water engine. Like you can see the water is like coming down the thing here. That's pretty cool, right? You got water flowing down. You can see when the water hits the lake. You see how there's like no obvious discontinuity? Like the river touches the lake water, and there's not like just a straight line where like it's river and now it's lake. You guys see that? It's actually really cool. Like it actually does an attempt at like blending the two water masses together like that. If we go under the water, you can see, yeah, it's not. This part's terrible. The water's sticking out, but the blending here is like not bad. Okay. So let's see here. What do we do? I can drop this down. Water's flowing uphill now. Better, except for this thing sticking out here. Landscape mode. Just fix it in post-production. Raise up the land on this side. You can probably mess with the settings on the river so it doesn't do that, but it's enough. Smooth it out a little bit. Yeah. Water's sticking out again. No, there it is. It's gone. All right. So there you go. There is a river, and so I probably want to conceal the origin here. That's terrible. Split this up a little bit so I don't have this like obvious, thing going on there. Smooth. You can still see that thing's cutting into it right there. Water's still sticking. Okay. And then I probably want to conceal this using some rocks or something, right? Because it looks kind of weird for water to just be coming out of the ground. So come over into meshes, props maybe, props, and find a rock or something. Drag out a rock. Make it bigger. Conceal it. There you go. Very natural looking. What do you guys think? Probably a better approach to this would be using like Pixel Bridge and finding some art assets that aren't going to look like you're just copying and pasting 4 times like I'm literally doing here. But there you go. So I've concealed the source of the water badly, and over here you can see the water is going uphill a little bit. So let's come in here. And that's all natural. Delete that control node. It looks a lot better now. Okay. Okay. This is not bad. That's bad. Back in sculpt. Alright, what do you guys think? You guys like the river? Nice. Good. I'm glad you like it. It's a special river. Yeah, you can make it, I don't know. You can probably add some, like, lazy river kind of mechanics to the game. So it kind of, like, pushes you along on an inner tube like this, you know, go down it. That'd be kind of fun. Very relaxing game. Okay, so the last bit of water we're going to show you guys today. Come over here, and we're going to search for ocean. Is there any other ones? Lake. You can put an island inside of a lake if you want, if the lake's big enough. But yeah, the ocean is here, and you drag the ocean over the center of the ocean there, and voila, the world is now ocean. And that's hilarious. It left our river as this. It's terrible. So maybe we can make this a little bigger. Something like that. And now, instead of having all that terrain out there, we've got an ocean surrounding our world. So we've actually substantially cut down on the amount of stuff we can do in the world, which is probably a good thing. I'm not going to fill up this entire world. So having an ocean is probably a good idea. Now, let me point out some problems. The beach, like you see that, it comes in like, what is that, like 20 meters and then cuts up at a 45-degree angle. Like nothing does in real life. Like nothing like, looks like this. You can just see on the ground like this. Like here's where the ocean meets the shore, you know, kind of thing. And so I don't know why these defaults are the way they are, but just all around the entire map, you have this beach that is just like thump, thump, like this. And so we can mess with it. Come in here and set it to width maybe, and that's even worse. Let's see here, 0. Yeah, that's even worse. 9,000 makes it much flatter. It's too much. Not too terrible. It's kind of cutting up this way. Maybe live with that. All right, I'll live with that. All right, turn up the camera speed again. And then whenever I work with an ocean, I just kind of like fly around and see if there's any like obvious problems like this. You know, looks like a problem to me. I don't like that very much. So then I'll come in here into landscape mode and maybe sculpt up the sculpt this up a little bit because it's the beach is like that, and then it's anytime you have like a visible discontinuity like that, like I don't like it. In nature, you don't see lines like that, you know? Like in nature, it's straight lines are somewhat rare. It's not like impossible. Like if a rock breaks or something, you'll get a straight line. But yeah, this little sinkhole kind of thing, I'll pull it up a little bit. So the player could get trapped in there too. You know? Smooth it out a little bit. And so this is what I do every time I work with the water. I'll sit there and play with the edge settings, the fall off settings. This looks pretty bad. Yeah, I can live with it, I guess. This is the kind of thing where you just spend hours like just flying around. I don't know. Yeah. This will do. All right, so if I play my game now, now I am on an island world instead of a mountain world. Right? And if I, you might not know that from the start, but if I come up over here, you can see there is now an ocean off in the distance. There's a river over there, and I could fill the world with foliage. That'd be cool. Got a lake, got 2 lakes. That's a problem right there. Mess with that. But yeah, little running on the top of it. I am gonna mess with that too. And then if you want to add a island to the ocean, it's just a puddle, not a problem. So you say when you're like training your dog, housebreaking your dog. It's just a puddle, not a problem. I don't even know where it went. I don't see it anymore. So I can like come over here and I can drag out an island. So you put an island in the middle of a water body, right? And so you can do things like this. And select a spline node, alt drag. So by doing things like this, you like make the world not quite obviously a circle, right? Like it is right now. So you can do things like have some of your land, kind of stick out from the world. A little harbor or something like that. I don't know. Or you can just have the island be an island. Right? That's a possibility as well. Or you just have like islands kind of off the shore, and you can see here the water interacts with it kind of weirdly. Like it looks kind of good, but it's also kind of terrible. Like that discontinuity right there. It's pretty bad. Let's see here. Island here. Facts. It's not doing anything with the edges here. That's wild. That's the island now. All those points. So you can add randomness to the shape. It's pretty cool. Those edges still look really sharp. That's the process anyway. You just go through and just mess with those things and see if you get something you like. All right. There's a lot of settings in these water things, and I have definitely not explored all of them. It's cool stuff. All right. So that's your task for today. Is basically to use the water, the new water system to make a river, a lake, and an ocean. And the last thing I'm going to show you guys today is building a sprint system. So the character, BP third person, over here. Let's pull that up. You remember last time we talked about the character movement. So what we're going to do is make it so that when the user hits shift, they sprint, and when they let off, they stop sprinting. So there's a new input system for Unreal Engine 5. So let's go to the input folder here. So if you go into content, third person, input, you will see that there is a folder in there called actions, and these are all the actions you can take in the game. If you're using an older version of Unreal Engine, you add new keybinds and things like that by going to project settings, input over here, and adding inputs over there. The new system, though, is kind of nice. So there are actually just objects within your content folder. I'm just going to duplicate this guy here. And I'm going to call this guy input action sprint. Sprint, like that. Control Shift S. And action description makes the user run fast. How about that? Consume input, so things will eat the input, so it's not forever. Trigger and pause. Type axis. No. Which one did I copy? That's actually a good question. Move, yeah, let's not copy move, actually. Let's get rid of this. Delete. Jump is better. Okay, so we're going to duplicate jump. Call this guy IA sprint. Because jump, you either jump or you don't. Yeah, so that's a bool. Okay, good. Okay. Makes user run. Okay. So that's why I go through these things, just to make sure. Trigger modifiers, input, settings. Okay, all this looks fine to me. You want to duplicate the type of input, because a move, you can have like a thumbstick on your controller that you can move faster or slower. So that's kind of like an analog input where you can get like 0.3, 0.71 all the way forward. Sprint, you're either going to tap sprint or you're not going to be tapping sprint. And so that's why I duplicated jump instead of move. I didn't even look at the one I duplicated, I don't think. We're going to go back up a level to input here. And we're going to go into the IMC default. And here under mappings, you can see the actions that we have already. I'm going to add a new one. And this new one is going to be IA sprint here. So I just clicked on the little drop down, it shows sprint. Now, if you look at jump as our guide, you can see that we have a keyboard spacebar to jump. We've got touchscreen jump. Don't care about gamepad. We don't care about the touchscreen. So all I'm going to do is add a key bind where if I hit shift, left shift, it will make me run faster. Now, if you click here, you can see that there are a lot of different inputs on inside of Unreal Engine. Like, there's a lot of different ways you can like hit the X button or the square button or whatever. There is a fast way of picking this out, because you could type shift and pick out left shift that way. But if you're trying to like find the E key, you know, there's like 900 things that have E in it, you know, and there's E, you know. There's a shortcut for this where you click on the little keyboard icon here, and then you tap the E key. Now when I hit E inside of the game, I'm going to sprint. So the trick is you click on the little keyboard, and then you tap whatever key you want to bind it to, and it picks it out for you. That was added a couple years ago, I think, and it's nice. It makes life just a little bit easier when you're trying to find the key. And that's all we really need to do. So this is like our keybind settings and things like that. I'm going to save it. And so all that stuff for like keybinds is in this input folder here. So this tells you which key you hit, and then these are the actual actions that you can take inside of the game. Come back into BP third person character. You can see we've got one already for look, one for move, one for jump, and we're just going to use jump again as our exemplar that we're going to plagiarize heavily from, because these things are a little bit different, right? Like for move, you can push the thumbstick more forward or more backwards. With look, the mouse can move a lot or a little bit at a time. You go fast or slow. What we want is jump, basically. And so we're going to just Control D, duplicate that. And I'm going to change the comment here from jump input to sprint input. Clear, go, burr. And if you want to change the color of a comment, you can of course do that. I think this should be some bright red color here. Red 1, green 0, blue 0, just bright red. It's too bright. It's too bright. Let's turn that down a little bit. There, it's a little more pleasing. Yeah. Okay. So instead of IA jump here, we are going to delete that, and we're going to choose IA sprint, like that. And that is an event. So that is an entry point into our code. So we're going to pick that. And then instead of jump and instead of stop jump, we are going to change our speed. Okay. So what we're going to do is we are going to drag out the character movement component here. The character movement component, I'll make room for it inside of here. If you guys remember that from last time, this has all of the different settings for things like how much gravity affects us, how much we can step up onto a stair, what's the maximum angle that we can walk up a slope, how fast do we run, how fast do we fall, this kind of stuff. And so the one we care about is our max walk speed. And so I'm going to set this back down to a default. I think the default was 500. I'm actually going to slow down to 600, just because 500 feels a little bit just sluggish to me. So default's 600. Okay. Now, and so what I'm going to do is when I hit Shift, I want to double that speed. I want to go up to 1200. So I'm going to drag off from the character movement, and I'm going to say set walk speed. Set max walk speed there. And so when the user triggers the sprint by hitting Shift, I'm going to set the maximum walk speed to 1200. So I'm going to go twice as fast. And then when they let off on it, when they, see if that's the right one, Control D to duplicate it. When they let off on it, we will just set the max walk speed back to the default speed. These should probably be variables. I'm not going to do it. I'm lazy. Target is the movement component. And let's try it. Let's see if we got sprint. So I'm moving at 600. If I hit Shift, I am now going faster. And if I let off, I slow down. If I hold it down, I go fast. If I let off, I go slow. If I press it down, I go fast. This little lip here doesn't look good. There's still that little puddle there. Okay. There it is. Okay, I'm just gonna cover that up. There. Nobody needs to know. All right, that's it for today. So the sprinting code, one last time, it's pretty simple. We created a new input. So we went into the input folder, duplicated jump because that's the closest thing to what we're trying to do. I called it sprint. Went into the input mapping context. Went in here, added using the plus thing here to make a new binding for sprint and bound it to the left shift key. We can add an additional one as well if we want. We can bind it to the right shift key if we want. And then you can have multiple key binds for the same event. And then inside of the VP third person character, we said when the user hits sprint, i.e. by hitting shift, we're going to increase the max walk speed. We do that by dragging off character movement, setting the max walk speed to 1200. And when we let off on it, we set the max walk speed to 600. That is our class for today. Sprint is one of the first things I like to do every semester, just because I get real tired of walking slow in my worlds, especially when they're like this big. You know what I mean? All right, so thanks for coming out, everyone, and I will see you guys on Tuesday. That's your homework. Make some water. Peace out.